My name's Mike Morrison, or Michael Scott Morrison, if you want my full name. And I'm a peer support worker, and I also work at a treatment center called McKay Manor as support staff. And I'm a peer support worker in the outreach organization called Mesa. That's funding through the SUAP initiative through the federal government. We do outreach to people suffering from addiction and homelessness, and the idea of Mesa is to meet people where they're at. Right. So instead of waiting till they get to treatment, waiting until they come and get mental health help, et cetera, we go to the encampments. We go to their hotel rooms, to wherever they are currently housed or unhoused, and living their lives. And we're not going to them with judgment or with hey, we got a better way for you to live. We're going to them to say, hey, is there anything we can do to help you, right? So that's the goal, right? So my experience has been on the other side. I've gotten into substance use to the point where it started controlling me. And as a result of that, I experienced job loss, homelessness. I lived in shelters. I lived in tents, and I became an outsider to the world. I felt like I didn't belong in society, right? And I felt judgment and discrimination from many different areas in society and in the system, both mostly in the medical community, because often through addiction, I ended up with harm to myself, and I had to go to hospitals, and I was not treated well, to put it mildly. Right? When everybody else was staying at home, trying to get through COVID, I was living in a tent or on the street or in and out of shelters because I wanted to use, and you couldn't use in the shelter, so it was easier to just be homeless. All through COVID for 3 years at that point, right? Give or take. In the institution, we couldn't use. And my addiction, that fight or flight mode there, where to use is to find relief, right? It's like a life or death impulse. And in the shelter, I couldn't use. So that freedom, that homelessness, living in a tent or being on the street gave me was that I could use whenever I wanted, and nobody was going to punish me for it. There was going to be no consequence. Well, there's always consequences, but in my mind, there wasn't going to be immediate consequences from it. And when I did get caught in the shelter, there were immediate consequences. I got kicked out. I got actually put on a ban, both in the Salvation Army, the mission, and the other one, 3 different times for being found using, and then I got a 30-day ban from each of those places. So I wasn't even given a choice about being homeless. I was removed from those places because of using. It made me feel kind of crappy, right? Like, don't get me wrong. It made me feel good to have that freedom, to be able to feel like now nobody can tell me what to do. And among us, the people like myself that lived out there, we consider ourselves separate. We consider ourselves soldiers. We hunted and gathered, basically to get what we wanted and to survive. So that included, dumpster diving at the back of Tim Hortons to get food, or dumpster diving behind the Salvation Army to find clothing, to clean clothing, going to shelters on a weekly basis to get showered and to get computer access. And then besides that, you're walking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to survive and to keep safe and to keep moving. So we felt actually completely separate from society and completely judged or separated by society as well, right? So that's how it made me feel, kind of. Right? Using was like survival to me. I could not use. I had to use. It wasn't a choice. It was, and once I did use, even sometimes after years of sobriety, because I've been in recovery more than once, I remember having 2 years clean once and then thinking to myself, oh, I can go get some. And I picked it up, and the day I picked it up, I emptied $4,000 out of my bank account within 72 hours to maybe a week. And I didn't pay my rent, and I didn't buy any food, and I didn't eat, and that's what kind of choice it really is. I'm out of control once I use, right? I had a family literally tell me one Christmas that I couldn't come in the house, and I literally slept in my van outside the front of their house, and the neighbor came out with a blanket to give me so that I wouldn't get too cold, because I had no gas left in my vehicle and no money, but they didn't want to see me because of the shape I was in, and didn't trust me enough to let me in the house. So yeah, I just slept outside in the van with a blanket on me. And then they were heartbroken. Looking back on it, I know they were heartbroken, but they couldn't trust me. I've heard the line numerous times: "If you loved me, how can you love me and do this? How can you say you love me and do this?" And it took me years to understand that. Like, I do love you, I do, but this is different. This surpasses that. I remember that when my daughter was born. I have a daughter who's 22. We went to the hospital. We took her in. We took my ex in to give birth, and then we gave birth to my daughter. And she did all the work. We came up to the room afterwards, and she was exhausted because it was a 12-hour delivery. And she said, "Listen, go home and feed Impulse," which is the name of the shepherd, "and then come back, and I'll see you. I'll see you in the morning. I'm going to sleep." And I said, "Okay." I left, took her credit card to go home, and then went on a bender and didn't come back for 3 days. And I kept that receipt from the parking lot from my daughter's birth as a tool for the future. Hoping that lesson would teach me in the future not to use, and it never did. As heartbreaking as that was. I went to the hospital once with an abscess in my arm. My arm was twice the size it is now. Don't get me wrong, I waited until my arm was probably 3 times the size of this arm before I went, because I was too busy using in that arm. When I got to the hospital, they said, yeah, okay, we've got your information. Go sit over there. We'll call you when the doctor's ready. And I felt my arm getting bigger as I sat there, right? I don't know how abscesses work. I'm not a medical professional, but I know that my arm was getting bigger. And I went back to that front desk 5 different times, said, "Listen, this is getting worse. It's starting to get painful. I feel like my skin's going to rip open." And they said, "It's not. You're fine. Go sit down." Only to discover after sitting there for 2.5 hours or whatever, that the doctor came out and grabbed me and brought me to a room and said, "I need to cut you open right now because this is a severe problem, and do I have your permission?" And she did me the medical procedure right away. But as I passed the front desk there, the nurses all rolled their eyes like I was a problem, right? That's how I usually got treated, right? I think that it's just frustration. I think that they live in a frustrated job setting where they are possibly getting treated not too good by the addicts that come in or alcoholics that come in, because when we're not in our right mind, we're not necessarily kind, and we do come in often. This is a prevalent chronic disease that I did suffer from, or that I do potentially suffer from if I pick back up, and it gets rid of choice. So we're not coming back on purpose. We're coming back because we have no choice, but unfortunately, that dichotomy or that group of people believe there is a choice, and that's where stigma really results from, right? It's not a choice. Using, once you cross that invisible line that I talked about earlier, choice is out the window. I can't be clean and have the same friends. I am when I came to recovery, that's the hardest part of staying there. It's not about wanting to stop. I didn't come to recovery because I wanted to stop using. I came to recovery because I wanted to not die, because that's what using ultimately will get me. It's I'm hanging around unhealthy, unclean, unregulated, and desperate people using dirty, dangerous, in dirty and dangerous locales, and using unregulated drugs that can have anything in them. So putting my life at risk on a regular basis. And it wasn't the pleasure of the high that I was quitting. It was all the consequences of doing that I was trying to stay safe from. And yeah, I can't, if I keep hanging around those people, all those consequences and all those dangers still exist, even if I'm clean. And staying clean around that is impossible. So yeah, I had to change all my people, places, and friends. In fact, most of my people, places, and friends now are either normies, for lack of a better term, or people that are in recovery, right? Because until you've been homeless, until you have basically have the clothes you have on you, no money in your pocket, and are struggling to be accepted into a tent city, and worried about getting robbed, assaulted, or even accepted into that society, you can't speak about it, because that's loss. To get clean, I had to be alone completely at the beginning. I had to give up everything I knew and start brand new, full of fear and full of uncertainty, right? I mean, I've been to 13 treatment centers. So I've been to 13, right? But like two of them were outpatient, but I've been to 11 in-house, 2 6-month ones where I lived 6 months in aftercare after the fact, and I have 4 years clean right now. I do not think that any of those were failures. They're all part of the process of me getting to where I am. If I would have taken one of those treatment centers out of there, who knows what I'd be today, right? I mean, we all have our experiences to build who we are today. And I wouldn't, even some of the horrible stuff that I went through, I wouldn't change that, because that's where that's some of the tools I use today to relate and identify with people, right? So no, none of them were failures. All of them were steps towards the success my life is today, who I am today, right? And there's no such thing as success or failure in recovery, right? I love my 12-step fellowship, because it teaches me more than anything that some of us are going to die. It's just a fact. That's addiction, and some of us hopefully will live, and then some of us will even live happily, and that's ultimately the goal, right? So today I just started a full-time position as a peer support specialist, right? Canadian certified peer support specialist. Oh, I don't know why I rolled my eyes there. And I have training in a couple other areas through CACCF. So yeah, I'm doing full-time outreach with the Mesa SUAP program. I go to 2 home groups, one in AA and one in NA, that I run both of them. I have a sponsor. I am a sponsor. So I'm taking people through the program. I have a great relationship with the treatment center called Mesa Manor, who all the clients there and the new clients know me, and I have a great relationship with my family, who once didn't let me in their house. I have a mother who loves me. I have sisters that adore me, and a brother that I both adore and love me back. They see me as a success. They admire my tenacity and my where I'm at. I have a bunch of friends in recovery, and friends outside of recovery that value my opinion and value my friendship. I wake up every day and life is worthwhile. There was a long time, even in recovery, where I woke up and my first reaction was, like, that's how I used to wake up. And sorry, I'll get choked up here, but that's how I used to wake up. And that F was my favorite word. My favorite word. Unfortunately, I didn't even realize how connected to anger and frustration that was. Today, that isn't one of my favorite words, and today I spread the joy that I feel. So that's what today is like on a regular basis.